It's something I try to do around here where we call them thought experiments where I say, what happened?
Oh yeah, thought
Thought
experiments.
experiments where I just pose to someone. I said, what happens if we stop doing shows? And people are like, what do you mean stop doing shows? We do a show every week. That's what we've done for 9 years. But what if we didn't? Then what would we do as a brand? And then everyone freaks out. I'm like, just meditate on. I use that term. One of my mentors said, I'll meditate on that. And he's not a meditator, but he said that term, and it's what you cover in the book, John. It's like, that means give your unconscious brain a few days to process it and get that whatever, the left side of the frontal cortex out of the way, because it's going to make everything logical. Let's do a spreadsheet, pros and cons. But that's,
the greatest bit of research ever done showed that the creative people could play.
okay.
That was the only difference. Well, there was one other minor one, but that was the key. Could they play? Could they just sit back and think, and be play, not in an anxious, got to solve this kind of way, but just, what about this? Or what that? Why did I think of the rhinoceros? And all that playful quality. That's what gets you off this path to the shed.
And you must have done a lot of that at Cambridge in that improv troupe, is playing.
No, I never did improv.
No, okay, so you were just coming up with ideas and creating pieces.
I was writing. And then latterly I was writing with Graham Chapman. We got together in my second year. But we would just play, and sometimes we'd just open up a book and I would read words out. And I'd say cucumber, and he'd say, doesn't do much for me, does it? I said, don't think so. And then I said, all right, plummet. He said, ooh. He said, I like plummet. That's a funny word, plummet. You know? And I said, yeah, I like that. What would plummet? And he said, a sheep. And I said, what do you mean a sheep? He said, a sheep would plummet if it tried to fly. And I said, why is a sheep trying to fly? And he said, well, because otherwise he knows he's going to finish up next to the mint sauce. And it's that random quality, which is where stuff comes through the unconscious, because no matter how good your logical mind is, you can't be creative. You can make tiny improvements, but you'll never come up with anything new, anything that's a bit of a breakthrough, anything that's a new way of looking at things. That doesn't come from the logical mind. That comes up from the unconscious. And if it sounds a bit woolly, you read a book called Harebrained Tortoise Mind, Tortoise Slow Mind. And this guy Claxton, who wrote it, has spoken a lot about, or written a lot about, Nobel Prize winning physicists. And everything they do is exactly what I'm talking about. Albert Einstein once said that when he was thinking, he could not put into words what it was that he was thinking. If somebody said to you, what are you thinking right now? You would say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, Einstein admits that he didn't know what his mental processes are. That's pretty powerful evidence. And Edison, who has more patents than anyone in history, he used to sit in an armchair because he thought that he had more ideas when he was drowsy than when he was up and alert. And he'd have a handful of what do you call them? Little metal balls. Ball bearings. Ball bearings. And he'd have a metal plate below, and he'd sit there in the very drowsy state, just dreaming and playing. And if he went to sleep, his hand would relax and the ball bearings would drop on the plate, make a bit of noise, and it would wake him up, and he'd pick the ball bearings up and go back into the drowsy state again. Now, if he had more patterns than anyone else in history, it wasn't because of his clear logical thinking.
Right. This is neuroscience, really, here.
Yes, it is. That's neuroscience, it is. And this is Donald Hebbs, the Canadian, who talked about when neurons fire together, they wire together. It's all about how to get off that wire, that path, into new areas. And you can only do that if you're not under pressure. In other words, if you're playing, because kids can play. And of course, another reason kids can play is that the parents are minding the shop. So what I'm saying is that you can go back to playing if you can create the childlike condition, which is no interruption. So you have to close the door or go and sit in the park a long way away from anyone. And for a very specific period of time, like when I play like football, referee blows the whistle, you start. He blows the whistle, you finish. For that period, maybe about an hour and a quarter, you just forget everything. And of course, the first thing that happens is you sit down and you say, right, let's be creative. Oh, should have called Bob. Forgot to buy a present for the hamster, this kind of stuff. And you have to sit there meditating, just like you were saying, until the mind just gets a little bit quieter and all those should be doing this, should be doing that thoughts go away. And then you can start to play. Because at the moment when an hour and a quarter is up and your watch or clock or whatever goes beep, 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 you can go back to real life. But until then, you're away from real life because you can't play if you're in the middle of it.